I said get out of the car. You think driving a nice vehicle makes you legal. Papers, now. The agent's hand slammed against her driver's side window, so hard the glass cracked, and every car on that Houston freeway exit came to a frozen stop. Judge Renee Patterson's heart seized in her chest as rough hands grabbed her arm, her judicial robe swinging from the hanger in her backseat, invisible to men who refused to see anything but the color of her skin. Agent Derek Miller stood 6'2" with wraparound sunglasses hiding his eyes, badge gleaming like he owned the highway, his smirk broadcasting that he'd never been questioned, never been challenged, never been wrong. But in exactly 2 hours and 47 minutes, Judge Patterson was scheduled to deliver a ruling that would expose the biggest corruption scandal in ICE history, and Derek Miller's name was all over the evidence. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in September. The Houston skyline glowed amber and pink as Judge Renee Marie Patterson backed her black Mercedes E-Class out of her driveway in the 3rd Ward, the same neighborhood where her grandmother had raised 6 children on a nurse's salary. At 61 years old, Renee had spent 34 years in law, 12 years as a public defender, 8 years as a prosecutor, 14 years on the federal bench. She had put away cartel leaders, corrupt politicians, and criminals who thought money made them untouchable. This morning, she was headed to the Thomas D. Hogan Federal Building for what her clerks called the case of the decade. But here's the part that changed everything. 3 miles from the courthouse, traffic slowed near the I-45 exit ramp. Renee noticed the checkpoint, immediately white SUVs with green stripes, agents in tactical vests stopping vehicles at random. Immigration checkpoint, she murmured to herself, reaching for her purse where her driver's license sat in the front pocket. She'd seen these operations increase over the past 2 years. As a federal judge, she understood the legal complexities. As a black woman in America, she understood something else entirely. The agent directing traffic waved 3 cars through without stopping them. A white pickup truck, a silver minivan, a red sedan with a young white couple inside. Then his eyes landed on Renee's Mercedes. His hand shot up. Pull to the side now. Renee calmly guided her vehicle to the inspection area, her window already rolling down. "Good morning, officer," she said, her voice steady and professional. "I'm Judge Renee Patterson from the Southern District Federal Court. License and registration." He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her words, just thrust his hand toward her window like she owed him something. "Of course," Renee retrieved her documents. "I'm due at the courthouse in approximately." "You got a passport?" Renee paused. "Excuse me." "A passport, proof of citizenship. You speak English or do I need a translator?" The condescension dripped from every syllable. Renee's jaw tightened, but 34 years of legal discipline kept her voice measured. "I'm a United States citizen, born in Houston. My driver's license and judicial identification are right here." The agent, his nameplate read D. Miller, snatched the documents from her hand. He studied them with theatrical suspicion. "This says federal judge," he snorted. "Right, and I'm the president." "Sir, that is an official federal judicial identification card. You're welcome to verify it with." "Step out of the vehicle." The words hit like ice water. But this was only the beginning. "I need you to explain why I'm being asked to exit my vehicle," Renee said, her hands deliberately visible on the steering wheel. "I've provided legal identification." "You're being asked because I'm ASKING." Miller leaned into her window. "You got a problem with that? We can do this the hard way." Renee's eyes flicked to his body camera. The red light was off. "Your body camera isn't activated, Agent Miller." His smirk flickered. "Technical difficulties." He yanked her door open, Now get out. I'm requesting that you contact your supervisor before. His hand clamped around her forearm. Renee gasped as he pulled her from the vehicle with enough force to make her stumble. We got a live one, Miller called to his partner, a younger agent who looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Driving a stolen Mercedes, fake federal documents, classic. This vehicle is registered in my name, Renee said, fighting to keep her voice from shaking. Those documents are authentic. If you contact the federal courthouse. Lady, you know how many illegals try this story. Miller shoved her against the hood of her own car. Nice clothes, fancy car, I'm somebody important. He mocked her voice with cruel exaggeration. But you all look the same to me. You all look the same. The words hung in the humid Houston air. Renee's cheek pressed against warm metal. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Baby girl, they will try to make you small. Don't you let them. My name, Renee said slowly, is Judge Renee Marie Patterson. I have served the federal judiciary for 14 years. My chambers are on the 17th floor of the Thomas D. Hogan building. The Chief Justice knows me personally. Sure she does. Handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Cold steel against skin. She'd spent 6 decades protecting with dignity. If only he knew what was coming next. Cars crawled past the scene. Drivers craned their necks. Some recorded on their phones. Renee saw their faces: shock, confusion, some satisfaction from those who believed anyone in handcuffs deserved them. Miller paraded her in front of the checkpoint like a trophy. See this, he announced to his team. This is why we do what we do. They think they can just drive around in stolen vehicles with fake IDs and nobody gonna check. A younger agent, her nameplate read SOKO and KWO, stepped forward. Miller, maybe we should verify the documents before. Verify what? I've been doing this for 11 years. I know fake when I see fake. The judicial ID has a holographic seal. It looks authentic to me. Miller's expression darkened. You questioning me, rookie? Agent Okonkwo, a young black woman who couldn't have been older than 28, lowered her eyes. No, sir. Then get back to your post. Renee watched the exchange. Saw the fear in Okonkwo's eyes. The resignation. The survival calculation every black woman in America knew by heart. Don't make yourself a target. Don't speak too loudly. Don't let them see you bleed. Miller grabbed Renee's arm and marched her toward one of the white SUVs. You're going to detention for processing. Maybe a night or two in holding will help you remember where your real papers are. I have a trial this morning, Renee said. A federal trial, if I am not in that courtroom by 9 o'clock. Guess your defendant gets a free day. He shoved her into the back of the vehicle. The door slammed shut. Through the tinted window, Renee watched her Mercedes sit abandoned on the exit ramp, her judicial robe visible through the back window. Her phone, still in her purse on the passenger seat, began to ring. The courthouse was calling. What he didn't know was who was trying to reach her. At 7:34 a.m., law clerk Destiny Williams placed her third call to Judge Patterson's cell phone. No answer. This isn't like her, Destiny said to her colleague Marcus Chen. She's never late. She's never even been on time. She's always early. Marcus checked his watch. The Thornton case starts at 9. The attorneys are already in the building. I know. Destiny tried again. Voicemail. She pulled up the GPS tracking app that all federal judges had installed on their phones, a security measure, after threats against judiciary members had increased nationwide. The map loaded. A red dot blinked on the I-45 exit ramp. Her car hasn't moved in 47 minutes, Destiny said. Accident. I'll check traffic reports. But the traffic reports showed nothing. No accidents, no road closures, just a mysterious checkpoint that wasn't on any official schedule. Destiny's stomach tightened. Marcus, call building security. Something's wrong. And just when things seemed calm, Renee sat in the back of the ICE vehicle with her hands cuffed behind her back, the air conditioning blasting cold enough to raise goosebumps on her arms. Another woman sat beside her, young, maybe mid-20s, visibly pregnant, tears streaming silently down her face. "What's your name?" Renee asked gently. The woman startled. Maria Gonzalez." "Maria, I'm Renee. Are you okay? Are you in any pain?" "They took my papers," Maria's voice cracked. "I have a green card. My husband is military. He's stationed at Fort Hood. I have all my documents at home, but they won't let me call him. They won't let me call anyone." Renee's jaw clenched. "How long have you been here?" 3 hours. 3 hours. A pregnant military spouse, legally in the country, held for 3 hours without access to a phone. Renee's legal mind cataloged the violations. Fourth Amendment. Fifth Amendment. Protocol breaches. Civil rights violations stacking up like dominoes. "Maria, listen to me carefully." Renee lowered her voice. "When we get to wherever they're taking us, you need to remember 2 things. First, you have the right to remain silent, use it. Second, you have the right to an attorney, demand it. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything." Maria's eyes widened. "You're a lawyer." "I'm a federal judge." For a moment, Maria stared. Then something shifted in her face. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. "They arrested a judge." "They made a mistake," Renee said, "and I promise you they're going to regret it." "Be honest, what would you have done in that moment?" At 8:02 a.m., Chief Judge Alina Whitfield arrived at the federal courthouse to discover chaos unfolding. Her staff met her at the elevator with urgent whispers. "Judge Patterson is missing. Her GPS shows her vehicle on an exit ramp. There's an unauthorized ICE checkpoint operating without federal notification." Chief Judge Whitfield, 73 years old, 41 years on the bench, known throughout the Southern District as a woman who never raised her voice because she never needed to remove her reading glasses. "Get me the Department of Homeland Security on the phone." "Yes, ma'am." "Get me the federal marshals." "Yes, ma'am." "And find out who authorized that checkpoint." "Ma'am, there's something else." Destiny stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Judge Patterson was scheduled to deliver a ruling this morning on the Thornton case." "I'm aware." "Ma'am, the Thornton case involves allegations of corruption and civil rights violations within ICE field operations, specifically the Houston sector." Chief Judge Whitfield went very still. "Show me the defendant list." Destiny pulled up the case file. Names scrolled across the screen. Internal Affairs investigations. Whistleblower testimonies. Evidence of falsified arrests, wrongful detentions, and systematic profiling. And at the center of it, all a supervisor named Derek Allen Miller. Chief Judge Whitfield's face revealed nothing, but her voice dropped to ice. "Get me the FBI, now." But here's where this story takes its first turn. At 8:24 a.m., a black Chevrolet Suburban with federal plates pulled into the ICE checkpoint. 4 FBI agents emerged. Miller was in the middle of processing paperwork, completely fabricated paperwork, when he noticed the new arrivals. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The lead agent, a tall black man with silver temples and a stone-cold expression, flashed his credentials. "Special Agent Ronald Patterson, FBI." Miller blinked. "Patterson, we've received reports of an unlawful detention involving a federal judiciary member. I need to inspect your holding vehicle." Look, Agent Patterson, I don't know what you've heard, but we're running a routine checkpoint here. Everything's by the book. The holding vehicle, now. Something in Ronald's tone made Miller's smirk falter. He led the agents to the white SUV, unlocked it, swung the door open, and froze, because sitting in the back seat, handcuffs still binding her wrists, calm as a summer morning despite everything they'd done to her, was his mother. "Hello, Ronald," Judge Renee Patterson said. Special Agent Ronald Patterson stared at the scene for exactly 4 seconds. 4 seconds where every emotion a son could feel, rage, disbelief, protective fury passed through his eyes. Then he became an FBI agent again. "Remove those handcuffs immediately." Miller's face went white. "Agent Patterson, she didn't have proper." "Remove the handcuffs." Miller fumbled for his keys. His hands were shaking now, because he just realized the illegal immigrant he detained, humiliated, and paraded in front of his colleagues was the mother of an FBI special agent, and the judge about to rule on his corruption case, and the woman whose patience had officially run out. If only he had known who he was talking to. The handcuffs fell away. Renee rubbed her wrists where red marks were already forming. She looked at her son, this boy she'd raised alone after his father died when Ronald was 7. This man who'd worked his way through Morehouse and then Quantico. This agent who now stood between her and a man who'd thought her dignity was negotiable. "Mom," Ronald's voice was tight, controlled, but she heard the tremor beneath it. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, baby." "Your wrists?" "I'm fine." She stepped out of the vehicle with the grace of a woman who'd commanded courtrooms for decades. Miller stood frozen. His colleagues had gathered now, whispering among themselves as they began to understand the magnitude of what had just happened. "Agent Miller," Renee's voice was quiet, steady, more terrifying than any shout. "Do you remember what you said to me this morning?" He didn't answer. "You said, you all look the same to me." Ronald's jaw tightened. "You said my documents were fake because you couldn't believe a black woman could be a federal judge. You refused to activate your body camera. You declined to verify my credentials. You placed me in handcuffs in front of dozens of witnesses. And you did it all because you believed your badge made you untouchable." She stepped closer. "I've spent 34 years in courtrooms. I've watched men like you testify. Men who abuse power and then crumble when that power is taken away. And I promise you this." Her eyes met his. "You will crumble." Ronald stepped forward. "Mom, let me handle this." "I intend to let the entire federal judiciary handle this." She turned to the other agents. "There's a pregnant woman in that vehicle. Her name is Maria Gonzalez. Her husband is active military. She's been detained for over 3 hours without access to legal counsel. I want her released immediately." Agent Okonkwo, the young woman who tried to speak up earlier, rushed to comply. Maria emerged, shaking, holding her belly. Renee walked to her. "You're safe now." Maria burst into tears. "They didn't believe me. They wouldn't listen." "I believe you." Renee held her hand. "And I'm going to make sure every single one of them answers for this." What he didn't know was that the storm was just beginning. At 9:17 a.m., Judge Patterson arrived at the federal courthouse in an FBI vehicle, still wearing the same clothes she'd put on at 6 that morning. Her judicial robe had been retrieved from her Mercedes. Her phone had 34 missed calls. The lobby erupted when she walked in. Attorneys, clerks, marshals, all standing, all staring, all aware that something extraordinary had just occurred. Chief Judge Whitfield met her at the elevator. Renee, Eleanor, the 2 women colleagues, friends, warriors in a system that had never made room for them, willingly shared a look that spoke volumes. "How bad?" Whitfield asked. "Bad enough that I need a change of clothes and a very large cup of coffee." "The Thornton case will proceed as scheduled." Renee's voice hardened. "I will not let them delay justice by treating me like a criminal." Whitfield nodded slowly. "There's something you need to see." She led Renee to a conference room where Marcus and Destiny waited with a laptop. One of the agents at the checkpoint, a woman named Sharon Okonkwo, her body camera was active the entire time. Renee's eyebrows rose. Miller's wasn't. But hers was. She recorded everything, Judge Patterson, every word, every action. Miller pulling you from the car, the comments he made, the falsified paperwork. Destiny turned the laptop around. On screen, the footage played in crisp, damning detail. "You all look the same to me. I know fake when I see fake. Maybe a night or two in holding will help you remember where your real papers are." Renee watched herself being handcuffed, watched herself maintain composure, while a man with a badge treated her like she was nothing. Watched Maria sobbing in the background. "Agent Okonkwo submitted this footage directly to Internal Affairs," Destiny said. "She came forward voluntarily. She's requesting whistleblower protection." Renee was quiet for a long moment. "Then make sure she gets it." "Yes, ma'am." And just when things seemed calm, the real investigation began. At 10:34 a.m., 1 hour behind schedule, but with fire in her spirit, Judge Renee Patterson took the bench. The courtroom was packed. Attorneys, journalists, and spectators filled every seat. Word having spread through the legal community that something unprecedented had occurred. Judge Patterson surveyed the room. Her eyes landed on the defense table, where attorneys representing ice field operations sat with careful neutrality. They knew. They all knew. "This court will come to order." Her gavel fell. "Case number 4, 23 CV 00891, Thornton et al. Versus the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement Division." She opened her folder. 67 pages of evidence. 43 witness testimonies. 2 years of investigation. And at the center of it all, a pattern of systematic discrimination, falsified arrests, and civil rights violations orchestrated by supervisors who believed their badges made them gods. The plaintiffs in this case allege a pattern of unlawful detentions, racial profiling, and abuse of power by ICE field agents in the Houston sector. The defendants argue that all actions were taken in accordance with federal immigration enforcement guidelines. She paused. Having reviewed all evidence submitted, testimony delivered, and documentation provided, the courtroom held its breath. This court finds in favor of the plaintiffs on all counts. Gasps rippled through the room. The evidence establishes a clear pattern of discriminatory enforcement targeting individuals based on race, ethnicity, and national origin. Internal communications reveal that certain supervisors. She glanced at the evidence. Specifically, Supervisory Agent Derek Allen Miller actively encouraged the harassment of individuals of color, discouraged body camera usage during stops, and falsified detention records to meet internal quotas. The defense attorneys' faces went pale. This court orders an immediate injunction against the practices outlined in the complaint. Furthermore, this court recommends criminal referral to the Department of Justice for agents engaged in documented civil rights violations. Her gavel fell like thunder. Court is adjourned. But here's where the second twist changed everything. 3 hours after the ruling, Judge Patterson sat in Chief Judge Whitfield's office reviewing the fallout. Her phone buzzed. "Ronald. Mom, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that's bigger than Derek Miller," Ronald's voice was tight. The investigation into your detention uncovered something else. Miller wasn't acting alone. He was taking orders. Renee's blood chilled. From whom? Regional Director Victor Holloway. He's been running the Houston sector for 8 years. We just found evidence that he's been coordinating with Miller to specifically target vehicles near the federal courthouse. Why would they target vehicles near the courthouse? Because they were looking for people connected to the Thornton case, witnesses, plaintiffs, anyone who might help the case proceed. The implications crashed over Renee like a wave. They weren't trying to catch immigrants. They were trying to intimidate witnesses. Exactly, and when you got caught in their checkpoint this morning, they didn't know who I was. They just saw another target. Mom, this goes deeper. Holloway has connections to private detention facilities. He's been getting kickbacks for every detainee he sends their way. The more arrests, the more money. Renee's hands trembled not with fear, but with fury. They weaponized immigration enforcement for profit. We've got warrants being drafted right now. Holloway's going down. But there's one more thing you need to know. What? The whistleblower who gave us the financial documents. The one who exposed the kickback scheme. Yes. It's Agent Okonkwo, the woman who tried to help you this morning. She's been gathering evidence for months. She risked her entire career because she couldn't stay silent anymore. Renee closed her eyes. She thought about that moment on the exit ramp, Sharon Okonkwo stepping forward, being shut down, lowering her eyes. But not giving up. Never giving up. Protect her, Renee said, whatever it takes. Already done. Would you have stayed quiet in her position? Would you have risked everything to do what's right? At 4:47 p.m., Derek Miller was placed under arrest in front of the same checkpoint where he detained a federal judge 9 hours earlier. The cameras were rolling. News vans lined the highway. Helicopters circled overhead. Derek Allen Miller, you are under arrest for civil rights violations, false imprisonment, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. You have the right to remain silent. Miller's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally fear. The same fear Maria Gonzalez had felt. The same fear every innocent person he'd ever detained had experienced. This is a setup, he screamed. I was doing my job. I was protecting this country. You were terrorizing its citizens. The voice came from behind him. Agent Renee Patterson stepped into view. My mother served this nation for 34 years. She dedicated her life to justice. And you, Ronald's voice nearly broke. You put her in handcuffs because you couldn't imagine a black woman being worthy of respect. Miller had nothing to say. Get him out of here. The agents led Miller to a waiting vehicle. As the door closed, Ronald turned to find his mother standing on the shoulder of the highway, watching. Mom, you shouldn't be here. I needed to see it. She watched the vehicle pull away. I needed to know that the system I've given my life to can still hold people accountable. Ronald stood beside her. It can because of people like you. No, Renee shook her head. Because of people like Sharon Okonkwo, because of people who choose courage when silence would be easier. I just happen to be the face of this case. She's the hero. What he didn't know was that this was just the first of many arrests to come. Over the next 6 weeks, the investigation expanded beyond anything anyone had anticipated. Regional Director Victor Holloway was arrested at his home in Sugar Land, Texas, at 5:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The footage showed him being led out in handcuffs while his wife stood crying in the doorway, and his teenage son recorded on his phone. 14 other agents were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. 7 were eventually criminally charged. 3 private detention facilities lost their federal contracts. A congressional investigation was launched into oversight failures within ICE leadership. And through it all, Judge Renee Patterson continued to sit on the bench. She didn't give interviews. She didn't write opinion pieces. She simply continued doing her job with the same dignity she'd carried for 34 years. But the case had changed something. Across the country, other victims began coming forward. Other stories of unlawful detentions. Other moments where badges had been used as weapons and silence had been the expected response. Maria Gonzalez testified before Congress about her experience, her military husband standing proudly beside her. Their story helped secure new protections for military families. Sharon Okonkwo received a commendation from the Department of Justice for her courage. She was later promoted and transferred to a supervisory role in a different sector, one committed to reform. And in Houston, at a community center in the 3rd Ward, a new legal aid program was established to help victims of unlawful detention access justice. It was called the Renee Patterson Justice Initiative. The judge hadn't asked for the honor, but when the community surprised her at the opening ceremony, she'd wiped tears from her eyes and said words that would be quoted for years to come. Justice isn't a gift given by the powerful. It's a right defended by the courageous, and every single person in this room is capable of courage. 3 months after the arrest of Derek Miller, Renee Patterson sat on her back porch watching the Houston sunset. Ronald arrived with takeout from her favorite Jamaican restaurant Oxtail, rice and peas, plantains on the side. "You didn't have to bring dinner," she said. "I wanted to." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the way only people who truly know each other can. Finally, Ronald spoke. "I keep thinking about that morning, when I opened the door of that vehicle and saw you sitting there in handcuffs." Renee set down her fork. "I've seen a lot of things in my career," Ronald continued. "Things that would break most people, but seeing my mother, the strongest woman I've ever known, being treated like that." His voice cracked. "I wanted to hurt him, Mom. I wanted to make him feel what you felt." Renee reached across the table and took her son's hand. "But you didn't." "No, because that's not who I raised you to be." Ronald squeezed her hand. "You raised me to believe in the system, to trust that if we do our jobs with integrity, justice will prevail." And did it. He looked at her, this woman who'd buried a husband, raised a son alone, fought through decades of discrimination, and still showed up every single day to serve a country that didn't always serve her. "Yeah, Mom, it did." Renee smiled. "Then that's enough." 6 months later, Judge Patterson presided over the sentencing hearing for Derek Miller. The courtroom was silent as Miller stood before the bench, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of a badge. "Derek Allen Miller," Judge Patterson said, "you have been found guilty of civil rights violations, false imprisonment, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Your actions terrorized innocent people. Your actions undermined public trust in law enforcement. Your actions violated the oath you swore to uphold." She paused. "But what I find most troubling about your conduct, Mr. Miller, is not what you did. It's what you believed." Miller looked up. "You believed that your badge gave you the right to determine who belongs in this country based on the color of their skin. You believed that power meant you never had to answer to anyone. You believed that the people you detained, the Maria Gonzaleses of this world, didn't deserve the same rights you take for granted." Her voice never rose. "It didn't need to." "You were wrong." She picked up her sentencing document. "This court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison. You are barred from ever serving in law enforcement again, and you are ordered to pay restitution to every individual your actions harmed." The gavel fell. Miller's head dropped. "Bailiff, remove the defendant." As Miller was led away, Judge Patterson allowed herself one moment, just one, to feel the weight of what had been accomplished. Then she moved on to the next case. Because justice doesn't rest. And neither did she. On a warm September morning, exactly 1 year after the incident that changed everything, Judge Renee Patterson drove her Mercedes down I-45. Same car, same route, same woman. But the exit ramp where she'd been detained was different now. The unauthorized checkpoint was long gone. In its place stood a small memorial marker, installed by community activists bearing the words, "Here injustice was confronted. Here courage prevailed. May all who pass remember that dignity is not negotiable." Renee slowed as she passed it. She didn't stop. She didn't need to. The memorial wasn't for her. It was for Maria Gonzalez, for Sharon Okonkwo, for every person who'd been stopped, questioned, humiliated, and told they didn't belong despite having every right to exist. It was a reminder that the fight for justice never ends. But on this morning, Renee allowed herself a small smile. Because today, she wasn't heading to the courthouse. Today, she was driving to Ronald's house to meet her first grandchild. A little girl named Grace. Grace means unearned blessing, Ronald had told her. And you, Mom, are the biggest blessing this family has ever known. Renee had cried. And for once they were tears of pure, uncomplicated joy. The aftermath of the case continued to ripple outward for years. Derek Miller served 12 of his 15 years before being denied parole. Victor Holloway received 22 years for his role in the conspiracy. The private detention facilities implicated in the kickback scheme were permanently shuttered. Congressional reforms established new oversight requirements for immigration checkpoints, including mandatory body camera activation and real-time supervisor notification. Sharon Okonkwo eventually became one of the highest-ranking black women in ICE history and spent her career ensuring no one else experienced what she'd witnessed that morning on the exit ramp. Maria Gonzalez gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Justice. Her husband received a commendation for his service and was later stationed in Germany, where the family started a new chapter far from the trauma of that Houston morning. And Judge Renee Patterson. She served on the federal bench for 3 more years before retiring at the age of 64. At her retirement ceremony, attended by judges, attorneys, community leaders, and family, she delivered remarks that would be remembered for generations. "When I was a little girl in the 3rd Ward, my grandmother told me that the world would try to make me small. She said people would look at my skin and decide who I was before I ever opened my mouth. She said the system wasn't built for girls like me." Renee smiled. "But then she told me something I've never forgotten. She said, 'Baby girl, the system isn't built for us, so we'll just have to rebuild it.' And that's what I've spent my life trying to do. Not alone, never alone, but with every person who refused to accept that justice is only for some of us." She looked at Ronald, holding baby Grace. She looked at Sharon Okonkwo, sitting in the 3rd row. She looked at Maria Gonzalez, who traveled from Germany just to be there. We rebuild justice every single day, with every case, with every decision, with every moment we choose courage over silence. And I am so proud, so deeply, eternally proud to have played a small part in that rebuilding. The room erupted in applause. Renee Patterson wiped her eyes. And for the first time in 64 years, she allowed herself to rest. Emotional moral ending. Justice isn't always swift. Sometimes it takes months, years, decades to arrive. Sometimes it comes in courtrooms. Sometimes it comes on exit ramps. Sometimes it comes in the quiet courage of a young agent who refuses to stay silent. But it always requires people willing to stand up when it would be easier to sit down. Judge Renee Patterson never asked to become a symbol. She simply wanted to do her job, serve her community, and raise a son who believed in something bigger than himself. But when injustice found her, when a man with a badge decided her citizenship, her credentials, and her dignity were all negotiable, she did what she'd always done. She stood her ground. She spoke her truth. And she let the system she dedicated her life to prove that it could still work. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but eventually, inevitably, righteously, for every black mother who's ever been made to feel small, for every woman who's ever had to prove she belonged, for every person who's ever wondered if fighting was worth it. This story is your story. Your dignity is not negotiable. Your worth is not up for debate. And your voice raised in courage, strengthened by truth, can change the world. Just ask Judge Renee Patterson. She'll tell you it's possible. And then she'll show you how it's done. If this story moved you, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video with every strong woman you know. Drop a comment telling me, what would you have done in Judge Patterson's position? Because these stories matter. Your engagement helps us tell more of them. And together, we make sure that justice isn't just a word, it's a promise we keep. Until next time, stay strong, stay dignified, and never, ever let anyone tell you that you don't belong.